Curious on your thoughts on tempo and perhaps instances where you've a certain tempo for certain reasons. So I tend to look first and foremost for 99% of people watching this. Tempo is a tool to make you use your muscles. So again, the funny thing is, people, I don't think I've ever written a post ever saying I'm a big advocate of time under tension, but people tell me all the time that I'm a big, I follow a hypertrophy coach, so I'm doing a lot of time under tension. I was like, I've literally never written that ever. I'm an advocate of using your muscles. So tempo is a great tool to teach people to use their muscles. Like if you have someone that's just bouncing at the bottom of a squat, bouncing at the bottom of any exercise, or going quickly through any part of the exercise that is the most beneficial, which also tends to be the hardest. That's why people bounce in the bottom of squats, because it's easier. You can bounce off of your tissue to get up. You can use momentum to go up. So I might tell someone, I say, go to the bottom, and I might count. So it's, you do a count of, you're doing a 4-second negative, so as they're going down, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm controlling. So the whole point of that is, the end result I want is for them to use their muscles on the eccentric, because obviously you can just go with gravity. Gravity is applying the force that you can literally just fall to the bottom towards earth, or you can use your muscles. So I might use a 4-second tempo as a tool to make sure that you're lowering the weight with your muscles on the eccentric and not just falling with gravity. Then as a tool to make sure that you don't bounce out of the bottom, I might do a full 2 or 3 second count, because what happens is I'll tell someone pause at the bottom. And their idea of pausing at the bottom is not bouncing as fast, but still bouncing. And so I might say, do a 1 or 2 second pause at the bottom. And they'll go down, and before they really stop, they're doing a count in their head of 1, 2, and they just keep going up. So again, it makes the bounce smaller and smaller. So I might say, I'm counting, you go to the bottom and pause, and I'm going to count, and then you go back up. So I go to the bottom, and I go 1, 2, 3, and then have them go back up. Now, is this something that I do this all the time when I'm starting with someone, so they actually gain some awareness and control of muscles that they're using and they should be using. They understand what the purpose of an exercise, the purpose of a squat. What's the purpose of a barbell squat or back squat or front squat? The purpose is to get to the bottom. If the top was the benefit of front squats, we wouldn't be making fun of all those quarter squatters. There wouldn't be an Instagram page dedicated to quarter squatters, because everyone inherently knows it's fucking useless. That's not the point of the exercise. The point of a squat is to get to the bottom. And if your goal is building muscle hypertrophy, is to make that part as beneficial as possible. As beneficial as possible means as hard as possible. So anyway, I like to use tempo and counting as a tool to make people use their muscles. Once you have a solid foundation of muscle control, I honestly don't care what tempo you use. So again, I've seen people, some people have 10 out of 10 control over a muscle, they can use what I would consider and look at as a pretty quick tempo, in my opinion. But they've mastered the use of that muscle so well that they're in control. So independent of tempo, you can still have control. That's why I think it's a tool and not a staple within something that everybody does when my training. Everyone, we're focused on time under tension, blah, blah. No, I'm just focused on using your muscle the whole time. I mean, it sounds silly and overly simplistic, but what are you doing an exercise for if you're not using the muscle the whole time? I mean, I tell people when they're doing their warm-ups, like sometimes people are so used to just pumping out 10 reps in a warm-up, and I was like, did you think about your muscle once during that? Let's make your warm-up 2 reps. People are like, how the fuck am I going to get warm in 2 reps? Like, well, I don't care about you being sweaty. Just think about every inch of these reps as much as possible for your warm-up for 2 reps and be done. And I guarantee 2 reps where you're actually thinking about every single inch and using your muscles every single inch is more beneficial than just completing 10 reps to just, you're doing this. It's a jerk-off motion that I'm just making subconsciously, apparently. So for 99% of people, I think you don't need to focus too much on tempo as a important principle that you build your training around. Tempo is a tool that you use to adhere to the principle of using your muscles the whole time that you train. Now, that being said, is there a time and a place then where it could be a training variable for, okay, we're just going to do longer eccentrics? Obviously there's a lot of research saying that, you produce the most muscle damage on eccentrics. So if that's really the goal, if I'm actually trying to cause damage as a mechanism for hypertrophy, then maybe I would use tempo as a tool to have some longer eccentrics, just one example. Or if I'm using my training for more metabolic output, instead of my client doing an extra hour of cardio, I really want to put them on something metabolically horrible during their leg session, I might have them do a leg press and not actually focus too much on the eccentrics. I might just have them almost half dropping it to the point of when they're not injuring themselves, and then just focusing on the concentrics. Concentrics is where you get more metabolic output, but not as much muscle damage. So if I'm using strength training for metabolic output, wouldn't it make more sense to put more time, focus, and effort in the concentric and not so much on the eccentric? So I say all that because 99% of the time, people shouldn't be worried about that shit anyway. Again, it kind of goes back to one of the first questions on this post, where most people just need better exercise selection, which is very, very easy. That's literally looking at something, reading something. Okay, I'm going to do that. Makes sense. And then the thing that takes forever, and they should focus on the longest, is continually improving execution and effort. So progressive overload of the muscle by progressing loads that you're using and progressing the form that you're using. And those things could always move in the right direction. I've never seen someone that couldn't improve on both. Unless you're deadlifting 800 pounds for reps, obviously the load you're using can still improve. And I've never seen anyone that I would say had 10 out of 10 perfect form where they didn't have any progress to make in that. So hopefully that answers your question. Tempo, again, first and foremost, the principle that's most important for hypertrophy is using your muscle. Tempo is a tool to help teach that principle. And then from there, it can also be a tool as a training variable. And again, I gave two little quick examples of where I might actually use the tempo as a tool as a training example, but there's tons of more good ones. A thing as a side note that I love for coaches, if you're a trainer or coach, counting tempo is fucking great because you're so engaged. I originally kind of heard this from Paul Quinn, that he's a big advocate of using tempos and stuff, which obviously with great reason, especially for athletes. And the way that he all does it is, he's been doing it a lot longer than I have, is brilliant. But one of my favorite things I ever read from him, which again sounds relatively simple, but I love it, is that if you're a coach and you're counting tempos, you're engaged. You know, if you're counting your reps for your clients, you're counting the tempos, you're engaged. Whether like the actual counting and tempo is that necessary. I've heard other coaches or other people from the outside say that it may seem obnoxious. Oh, why are we doing this? Why are we counting tempos? Blah, blah. Fuck, the thing that's funny about people making fun of that is, like, maybe, again, as I've just said with this whole post, the tempo itself isn't the single most valuable tool in the universe, but anything that engages a trainer is going to put you above 99.9% of other trainers. So that's a great reason for counting tempos. So hopefully you can see I don't really have any emotional feelings one way or the other towards tempo. Funny how that works, like everything else. It's not as big of a deal as people make it out to be. But that being said, if you're the tempo trainer, and again, it's just some great thing that you like, it helps you get better adherence from your clients, it helps them use their muscles more all the time, and it keeps you engaged as a great trainer, then awesome, have at it.